Welcome, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer1745 here with my start of a new series of Hearts of Iron 3 with Black Ice 8, Third Reich Events 4, German Graphical Augmentations, version 8, and the D-Worms mods. His three main event mods: Neutral States Pack, Scandinavia Pack, Baltic States Pack. Also have Tanganyika, one of my other sort of significant mod, Tanganyika, installed. I have, just to also promote up, I also have my other small province picture mod for California pictures, based on mostly historical, not all of California is done, but like Barstow there. I'm from California, live in California, so figured I would contribute some period pictures here. That's Hearst Castle or San Simeon there. That's they're calling it Oceanside, sort of Orange County, but that's a picture of Laguna Beach from this period, back in the 30s or 40s. And I worked for a few years right about there up on the cliff overlooking the beach outside every Sunday for a few years. That was fun. So I'm just giving you that. And I also have coming back over here, my foreign aid air bases small mod that I developed as playing much earlier. You can't build bases in allied foreign territory. It's a game engine limitation, and I think it's going to continue into the next version. And so when playing, I go, hey, I would like an air base there, or think, what we could do with that. So I created this mod to place bases there. And it's for Germany, Italy has one or two, a few Britain, and a bunch of U.S. chances to put bases in allied or controlled territory. But they're all, do you want to, yes or no. So if you have no interest in having the bases, a particular base, you just say no once the conditions are met. So I have that. And then we have Alexei's units of the Third Reich mod installed as well. And back to GGA. It's giving you a rundown. I have his unit pictures installed here, but I do not have his counters. The color's just a little too vivid. Even if he watches this, is fine. They'll do bright red for artillery and things like that. Color's a little too vivid, and I would sort of prefer the sort of gray tones that are used here. Even that's sort of a bit much for me now. And my other friend Thegan, who does the Vowerts Panzer, he wanted to have all these pink because that's the Panzer Waffen color. Even they just put the piping or edging around in the various colors. So my suggestion is, if anybody wants to take it and build one, would be to just put the Waffen colors, the like red for artillery, pink for Panther, just as a really minor border at most, is what I would do. He does this, but see, that's sort of a muted green, so that works a little better. But so I've left out that element of his mod on this install. You sort of have to manually install it to do it that way. But all of his events are here, and that for GGA. So we have that. Now I've also been watching Oh My God, OMG's series of B-Ice videos, and he's a very good power player. He wrote a lot of the gaming guides for B-Ice 7, various versions, and he really knows the numbers, really knows that really well. a lot of what he does won't work with most of these other historically based mods installed, because he's optimizing for various exploits within the game. And not that it's wrong, it's just he's going about it differently, and you can't, because there's a lot of cultural and other very real world historical events going on when playing this. I know we've gotten into this already and we haven't even started playing, but I sort of wanted to set this series up. You can't, can't just always tweak everything out for the most optimum player if you're going to do the history. So, starting out here is Germany, very first thing. But a few of his tips and things I am going to do, because I think are good. And so, we're going to go with Schnecht, Goebbels, and Frank here is that, and we're going to use Berlin here because of his construction practical delays. So that this is with the unique ministers, in my opinion, is sort of optimum. You got Nerus, Constantine here, reduced consumer goods in peacetime, so that helps that out. Goebbels, propaganda ministerium as head of security, that's a bit iffy, but the rest are all very historically likely. Now, here, this is one thing that I was looking at. Sorry if this is going a bit too long. Please post feedback, so I don't want to bore people if they just want to keep things moving, but I hope this is interesting. I was looking here, national revolt risk is a little less. We're going to state press here. Manpower, a little less as well. But it's the negatives to IC is only 1% instead of 2.5%, so you get 1.5% greater ICs. Not sure what tendency to drift due to internal factors really represents, quite honestly. Counter-espionage, not as good. Organizational rate, definitely not as good. Their national unity is also not as good, and we are going to be improving national unity, but we can do that in other methods. And it's 5% reduction in IC efficiency for production compared to 2%, so we get a 3% bonus there. So I'm going to drop back down to state press. Now, one thing I got to remember to do is because of things like manpower and organizational regain rate, I'm going to want to come back to that by the time I'm going to war. I really think, and I'd like you guys' input, because I can always click it back, but that's what I'm sort of taking with this. Now, one thing he was looking at, he was trying to get maximum ICs. And I don't know, going down with that to advanced training be useful, but full mobilization, that's good. But we also want to go to max that out. So we want to go up. So we have better ICs, construction practical delay improved, ruling party support here, national unity, territorial pride, leadership improvements under Goebbels. Also leadership improvements here, espionage, political intel, research efficiency. ICs, because I'm not a power gamer and I've designed the mods as I sort of see them, not, everything's not always a bonus, so you do have the negative element, the elements there of frick, construction practical delay. That along with this, so we've got a total of 15% reduction in there. So as we're building all of our factories we're going to be building, that will help with that all combined up. So that should be something that's useful for us. Mixed industry, we're improving there, and we're going down to that. Let's go to production. We're going to hold off on building factories also a little bit based on some of the stuff that I was watching. Not long by any means, but a little bit. Reduce this down here. Still want to get a lot of officers. And this time I'm going to go less espionage than last time, because as I said, and I do like to do the espionage, let's see what we can steal, and we will be doing some of that, but it's not going to be nearly as big. We're going to go for these. Now, also, quick word, you can go get TRE 4 LP version. That has all of the tweaks that I've done for this Let's Play version, so you can play the same thing. You can see what I've done, and it's also worth talking about now, is here. These organizational regain, organizational levels, basically I went through most of these and cut them in half for each of these steps. So there's 12 steps. Most of them are at 2. No, some are 14 here, steps. And so I cut, and some of the morale, I've cut those down as well. Not as big. They're not in half. We're going like from 85, 0.85 of a thing, percent of one increase to now it's like 0.75. So those are they're still increasing the morale, but not as big, and it's not as big as cut as this. So I've slowed the organization level gain per thing. Some of my, if you will, justification for it is that I don't know that the German army, I mean, they got better as the war went on, in the sense that when you started out the war, they hadn't fought a war for a few years, and a lot of new technologies, and how well do you organize it up and how well do you balance it all, that definitely improved. But one thing that doesn't really reflect in this is by late 1944, there should be there should be techs here that are reducing it because of all the combat losses and attrition and a lot of other factors. Their organization should be going down because they weren't at what they could or should be. Some of it just literally physical exhaustion, but also there's other reasons as well. So it doesn't flow as much. But yes, between the Bulgarian army in 1940 and the German army in 1940, we want to show a difference, and some of it's in firepower, hard and soft, and all that kind of elements. But part of it is also the organization. So a nation's ability to research these, meaning Bulgaria doesn't have as much leadership, won't be able to research as much of these, so they won't be able to gain that. So I get that. Part of this step element I agree with. But I don't think if we just concentrate on this, we should be able to max this out and get uber units throughout the German army everywhere. And it is scaled. It's different for militia than it is for an elite unit or whatever. But I've mostly slowed down the gain rate on a lot of these. So that's sort of my justification for it. Some of my reasons for it is if were following the last series, was particularly with the Soviet Union invasion, the high level of unit shattering. And so that even if you're creating pockets, and if you look at the way Germany mostly defeats the Soviets is by two methods. One, create pockets. So you surround the units, you fight them until they are exhausted, and then they in essence surrender. But if they're shattering because they've lost their manpower, they go back to their theater or capital and will rebuild themselves and show back up, and they will rebuild themselves much, much faster and cheaper than if you're building a unit from scratch. So somebody like the Soviets or the US or whoever will constantly be able to pump in more and more units, and yeah, that gives you a greater challenge. And I agree, if that's all you're looking for is a challenge, and I understand it's the stupid AI that they're compensating for, but it just sort of creates this endless thing. The other way to defeat the Soviet Union is overrun them, is defeat a unit, force it to withdraw, and take the province that it's withdrawing to before it's able to withdraw, and then the unit disappears. So it goes bye-bye. So it loses its manpower, its equipment, and it's gone. You don't rebuild the unit. The AI needs to put a new one into the production queue and take that time to go through the production queue and come out. So if their units are shattering instead of, and we were seeing units, mostly headquarters and some of the other stuff that were getting a lot of organization bonuses, and it's not entirely taken care of with some of this, because some of that, which I didn't change, is in here, I think, or maybe more in here. It's in here, yeah. Is the gaining in levels here, and maybe I should reduce it there. I don't know. The big reason I like to research some of these, as I've pointed out before, is it reduces delays between attacks. So, so that you can overrun or encircle Soviet units, they more likely. And we're going to see how this plays out. My intention with this series, and I guess this is just going to be a pure dialogue episode because it's going long enough as it is to play through to the defeat of the Soviet Union and the defeat of Britain. Maybe, and if that's taking too long, or until Hearts of Iron 4 comes out, and we'll see how much of this we have left to go. If Hearts of Iron 4 hasn't come out, and we've defeated Britain, and we've defeated Soviet Union, or I've had my butt kicked, one of those two, and we still have more time, we may go in and look at invading the US or whatever. I don't plan on starting another major German campaign of Hearts of Iron 3 before Hearts of Iron 4 comes out, because I want Hearts of Iron 4 to come out before I'm too old and too gray. You know, say it's going to be another year's delay. We'll reevaluate that. So that's what I've done. I've also done some tweaking to the events, mostly dealing with Barbarossa, so that if Barbarossa happens, say in 42, you don't immediately get the Soviet winter effects, and it's in the middle of summer. And some of this was already corrected because I pointed it out by Panzeroo, a really good guy, Panzeroo, and he's listening to my input. Not that he agreed with everything, not that he did everything I did. He doesn't need to. I'm not saying I'm right and he's wrong. He just has his vision. I have mine. They're similar, but they're not the same. So I set a few checks in there so that they won't happen, and then there's also a few events to rush T-34s to the front line. And when I went and looked at it, I realized because I started the war in 42, there was an event to rush a bunch of Panzer units, basically stick them right on the map in 41, and then there's another event for 42. So we got, or I got, the double hit of that in 42 because they both fired at the same year. And they're designed to have, rush new tanks to the front, but not, for, a few months of production rushed out there, not the whole thing done over again. So I added some sort of ability check to put a flag, have a cooldown period before the second one happens. So if the first one does happen, if we start it in 41, the 42 will happen as normal. If we start it in 42, the 41 will happen, and it will delay the 42 event. I think it was by at least 90 or days or something, or 120 days. I forget exactly what I changed to. So it could still happen twice in 1 year, but it's not going to happen both at the same time. So some cooldown checks like that. So I changed that. And as per our discussions before, the Atlantic Wall events no longer cost money. They now cost a mixture of supplies, steel, and energy. Probably more steel and energy than they should, but normally Germany has way too much of that, so I figured might as well bite into that. And they did use a lot of, obviously, steel for gun barrels and those elements, and mines, and the various tank obstacles that were made out of steel. But they also used lots and lots of rebar and all that concrete too. So the steel works. And I'm looking at the coal/energy is mixing cement. I don't know, but so that we can still create the West Wall. Now, as I was going through the events, the West Wall, and you have to have the West Wall events to fire, just so that you know if you're playing, you have to actually have taken Norway. So you can't just leave Norway neutral, and you won't, or otherwise you won't get the West Wall events to fire. But there are no West Wall events for Spain or Portugal, which, obviously shouldn't happen if they're neutral. I don't know if they should happen if they're puppets. They definitely could happen, and I would say would happen if they were, or say, I don't know if they should happen if they're allied, Axis allied. Puppets is another matter. If you actually puppeted them, then I think you should. But if they're allied, and I also would think it would be, but if you're direct German occupation or control, I think they should be able to happen, though I think you'd be stupid if you're building the highest level of West Wall along here, because you do have the Pyrenees to try to hold off any major assaults there. But still, setting up basic significant defenses around the ports, sort of the cheap option of a West Wall should be open to you, just to secure that, because if you get an allied invasion and you're able to hold Cadiz long enough that you run these guys out of supplies because they weren't able to take the port, that would be worth it. So that was something I was thinking about while doing that. So I guess this is just our basic talk. I want your input. You can start inputting now at this video. Questions, requests. I want to hear them. I want to know what you're thinking. I'm hoping this will be a very interesting, exciting, informative playthrough of Hearts of Iron with Black Ice 8 and Third Reich events and all the other really good sub mods. I want to thank all of you who have been posting comments. I want to thank all my playtesters and all the contributors to TRE. I really appreciate you guys. You're really helping out. So thanks a bunch. Be well. We'll be back with the next episode starting out. Hopefully this isn't too boring, that I wanted to just set the stage.